All right, class, good morning. Happy Tuesday. Today is May 19. Today we will be talking about the third and final branch of U.S. government, which is the judicial branch. And we will talk about the primary purpose that it has, the basic structure for how it's set up, and the main powers that it is given via the Constitution. Our agenda is first, what you should do is some Quizlet review. That Quizlet link is on the review materials post that I will move to the top of your streams on Google Classroom. I'm going to be adding some terms about the executive and judicial branches that you will want to know, so please take some time to study it. What we'll do in just a second is take some notes on the judicial branch and go through the basics of what that branch is all about. And then to end class, I would like you to do a Kahoot review quiz that is not graded, but just for review. Just to let you know, tomorrow, I'm going to give a quiz that will be a classwork grade about the judicial branch. So taking careful notes and doing enough review through Quizlet and this Kahoot would be a wise decision for you. And two, your test is scheduled to post on Thursday. So what's going to happen is today we'll talk about the judicial branch. Tomorrow we will talk about checks and balances, and you will take that judicial branch quiz as a classwork grade. Thursday, you will have a test to take, and you'll have to finish it by Friday. And then on Friday, I am planning on posting the final video for this class, which is going to give you a reminder to finish your late work, as well as explain what the exam's going to look like and what that's all about. And I'll post that exam next week, and details will come about that exam this week, Friday, on the video. And then we're done. So study Quizlet. We're going to be taking some notes on the judicial branch. These will be the last notes that we take about branches of government. We will be taking a little bit of notes tomorrow about checks and balances to wrap things up. First, what is the primary purpose of the judicial branch? For the legislative, it was making laws. Executive branch, it was carrying out laws. And the judicial branch's primary purpose is to interpret those laws, which in other words means determine whether or not they're constitutional. The basic structure of the judicial branch starts at the top with the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land. There are other federal courts, and we'll break down what that court system looks like later in this video. And then states will follow a similar structure where each state has their own Supreme Court with other state courts beneath that as well. For the judicial branch, there are 9 justices in the Supreme Court, and the reason we chose 9 is twofold. One, it gives enough opinions and perspectives to decide cases appropriately and responsibly. If you only have 1 or 2 justices, it's a very narrow-minded approach towards settling these important issues. And 2, you do need an odd number to make sure that there is a decision made. If you had 10 justices and 5 say yes, 5 say no, there's no way to break a tie in the Supreme Court. It is the highest, most powerful court in the land. There is nobody above it that court case can go to. Currently, John Roberts is the Chief Justice. He presides over the Supreme Court. Justices will serve for life. So if you're in the Supreme Court, you serve a lifelong term. You can serve as long as you'd like until you die, until you retire. The president is the person who appoints those judges, and the Senate has to confirm them. So just recently, President Trump appointed Brett Kavanaugh to be a Supreme Court justice. There was some controversy over this because there were allegations against Kavanaugh over sexual harassment and assault, somebody he knew back, I believe it was when he was in college, if I remember correctly. So the Senate had a trial to confirm whether or not he should be a Supreme Court justice, and ultimately they decided yes. So he is now part of the Supreme Court, but just because the president appoints somebody doesn't automatically mean that their appointment will get confirmed. Supreme Court has the power of something called judicial review, which was a power granted to them after a Supreme Court case decision titled Marbury versus Madison, which we are not going to go through in details back in the 1800s. This court case decision confirmed that the Supreme Court gets to decide whether actions and orders and laws are constitutional or not. And that power to make that decision is called judicial review. In the judicial branch court system, there are 2 types of courts that a case can go to. One of them is criminal court. The other is civil court. Criminal court would be like the TV show Law and Order. These are related to crimes. These are crimes committed against the people as a whole, the public, the state, just society in general. Civil court, however, would be more like Judge Judy when you're dealing with disputes over specific individual citizens. These deal with more personal, private matters and disputes between two people. For example, if one of you rented from me and I was your landlord and you weren't paying your rent, then I could take you to civil court because this is an issue just between you and I. It's not an issue that deals with society as a whole. Other courts in the judicial branch besides the Supreme Court include 94 district courts, 12 plus 1, so 13 courts of appeals, and the state courts will follow a similar structure where at the top there's a Supreme Court, then there's Court of Appeals, and then there are district courts. The district courts get original jurisdiction, which means they get to hear a case first. So anytime there's a case that enters the court system, it will start in the district courts. If there's an appeal, it will then go to the courts of appeals, and then it will end at the Supreme Court if it gets that far. So here's kind of a flow chart for what that looks like. So it would start down here at the bottom. If there's an appeal, it can work its way up. And these courts here get to choose whether or not they hear a case or not. Not every appeal gets heard by the courts of appeal or by the Supreme Court. They get to pick and choose. So there's 13 of them. And then if there's appeal after the courts of appeals, it will go to the Supreme Court, and there's nowhere else to go after that. Once the Supreme Court's made its decision, that decision is final. Although a similar court case, but different, could go there that would reverse a previous one. So justices can have two mindsets and two approaches towards how they view the Constitution, which determines how they make their court case decisions. One of them is called strict interpretation. Judges in the Supreme Court are not known, or judges anywhere, as being a Democrat or a Republican. Instead, they're known as being conservative and liberal, which is pretty much the same thing. So strict interpretation is conservative. This is the idea that government only has the powers that the Constitution gives it and nothing else, no other powers. So if the Constitution does not specifically, directly, explicitly say that the government has the power to do this, then someone with strict interpretation would say, no, the government can't do it. And that idea and that approach was led by Thomas Jefferson. Liberal justices, on the other hand, give more freedom and wiggle room to government, giving them more power. They believe that unless the Constitution specifically, directly, explicitly says that you can't do it, then the government can. The government can do what's, quote, necessary and proper, unquote, to get things done. So there's more gray area, there's more power for government. Meanwhile, in strict interpretation, it's much more narrow, defined definition and a much more limited approach towards government. And for loose interpretation, that was led by Jefferson's rival Alexander Hamilton. So those are the details of the judicial branch. Make sure you're taking careful notes for tomorrow's classwork quiz. What I'd like you to do then is go to the review materials post. At the very bottom of it, there should be a new Kahoot quiz posted. Looks like this. It is on the judicial branch. This is just for review to help you for tomorrow. If you have questions about the judicial branch, please let me know. Don't forget to have your State of the Union personal evaluations done by this morning, 10 a.m. That's a quiz grade, so make sure you get that done and it's done well. Otherwise, I will talk to you more in tomorrow's video. And good luck with the work today.